Welcome to the Israel Answers series, connecting Israel, the Bible, and you. Join Susan Michael as she explores timely issues and current events from a scriptural perspective to equip the Christian world with a balanced and biblical response. Be sure to subscribe for future episodes, which will ignite your faith and bring the Bible to life in your everyday world. Now, let's join Susan with your Israel Answers.
Welcome to the Out of Zion podcast. I'm Shelley Neese, filling in for Dr. Susan Michael, and I'm here with an old friend, Rabbi Tuly Weisz. Tuly is the founder of Israel 365, which has grown so much over the years, and I want to talk about that. So first, just talk about, I remember when you were a rabbi in Ohio and you were cold calling Christians like myself.
Oh, wow.
And first entering into this world.
I didn't realize that we were that old friends.
I got a cold call.
Wow, because you were doing the Jerusalem Connection for
exactly
20 years?
Exactly. So tell us the founding, tell us how you went from that point to there and you made Aliyah in the process?
So I was in Columbus and I was introduced to Christians for the first time in my life. I grew up in Columbus and I kind of in a Jewish bubble, so I didn't have a lot of interactions with Christians until I was an adult, and I returned to the community that I grew up in to be the rabbi of the synagogue that I grew up in, where my grandfather was the rabbi.
Okay, so talk about a bubble.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he was the rabbi for 50 years, a legend, and then he passed away. I took over. I was very young, and I knew everyone in the Jewish community, but I didn't know anyone outside of the Jewish community. And I met Christians who loved Israel. And to me, that it was almost like a paradox, Christians who love Israel, because I had kind of thought, we grew up to think that Christians were all in opposition to Jews. And Christians had this thing called the New Testament that replaced this Old Testament. And that's how I grew up. And so when I met Christians United for Israel or Christians for Israel, it was so surprising and even refreshing. So I got to know Christians and I started Israel 365 after moving to Israel, actually. So we must have spoken when I was sort of doing some research, and I was in touch with the local Christians who were supportive of Israel. And I guess I found the Jerusalem Connection. That's amazing. Thank you for reminding me about that. But Israel 365 is a daily newsletter. Started out as a daily newsletter.
That's the name.
Yeah.
But you've outgrown the name in many ways now, but
right.
Now you're Israel 365 24/7.
Yes, it feels that way. But Israel is based on a verse in Deuteronomy that says Israel is the land that God's eyes are upon from the beginning of the year until the end of the year. So every day of the year, we send out a newsletter with a Bible verse and a photograph. And we had outgrown that. And so we now have a news website, Israel 365 News, which I think
Which I think most listeners, that is one of the first ways that they sort of make a connection point to 365. Probably.
That's like our biggest, most forward-facing media property. It has a lot of web traffic, and we have a big social media presence, big YouTube presence, Israel 365 News with Rabbi Pesach Walicki. He has great videos, kind of the geopolitical analysis. He's fantastic. Mm-hmm. But we also have the Israel Bible, which is another program that we started, the Israel Bible. And that's when I also spent some time with you in Washington when we were doing the book launch of the Israel Bible in 2018.
Which, explain what that is. I mean, I know still with all of this growth and all of these new things you're doing, that has to be one of the favorite projects
That's definitely like my personal pet project.
Seventh baby.
My eighth baby.
Oh, your eighth baby.
We took all of those newsletters, all the content, after just 2 or 3 years, and we said, wow, we've been writing about this daily verse and a little commentary study note on a specific verse about Israel for 2 years, have hundreds of notes, and we then organized them chronologically from Genesis to the end of Chronicles, the Hebrew Bible. And then we laid it out, hired a graphic designer, actually worked with Israel's leading Tanakh Bible company, and they produced the Israel Bible. So it's got the English on one side, the Hebrew on another side, transliteration. So even if you're not fluent in Hebrew, you could read the Bible in Hebrew. People love that.
Yes.
With notes all about the ancient prophecies, the modern Israeli. We have every prime minister quoted whenever they sort of mention a Bible verse. like this morning we had Gilad Erdan, and he mentioned a verse in Isaiah. So we have those kinds of examples. It's really wonderful.
I love that because like what is my sort of like passion in teaching Christians is even just, Christian Zionists do not need to be like labeled as the weird Israel people and whatever their local church is. Like, we are Bible people. And that's how this starts and that's how this ends, is that Christians love Israel because we love our Bibles.
There is a study from the, I think it's called the Manhattan Institute recently, that throughout this war, Israel saw who our true friends are and who our friends are not. When much of the world abandoned Israel or, vilifies Israel, the evangelicals have stood in support of Israel. But there's really like 3 factors that have kept the Christians who go to church, the Christians who read the Bible, and the Christians who have some kind of Jewish friend or relationship. Those are the Christians who really stood with Israel the most. And so I feel like that as the Jewish people, what we need to be doing is telling Christians to start going to church more, telling Christians to start reading the Bible more.
Absolutely. Well, that's interesting that you say that, because just even in my own life, I grew up in the church. I grew up loving the Bible, but it wasn't until I went to Israel and met my first Jewish friend at 20 years old that, this activated something in my spirit as well. So one of the things with Israel 365 is that you have a big focus on just, I really feel like what you're good at is you're a visionary of just knowing what the next step in Jewish-Christian relations really will look like. So what is that next step for us? I mean, I do feel like we have come so far in the last 20 years, and especially even since October 7th. So what can we still do better?
So that's a great question. That's like a perfect lead up, because I wrote a book to answer that question.
Okay.
And it's called Universal Zionism.
This is breaking news.
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, I have a copy of the book, I think, right there.
Sure.
And it's called Universal Zionism, and it describes the next phase of the Zionist movement that is not just for the Jewish people. Like, Zionism started with...
Okay, we got the book.
Thank you.
Oh, it looks beautiful.
And that's a copy for you.
Okay, thank you.
Universal Zionism, the movement for Israel and the nations. Because Zionism was the political movement to bring back the Jewish people to our land. It was a political movement that started at a very specific moment, 1896. Theodor Herzl published a book called The Jewish State, and that's when political Zionism began. And then there's the next phase that I describe here is religious Zionism, where we built this great country. After 50 years, we had a state. In 1948, we had a state. And then the goal became making this a state not like all other nations, but unlike all other nations, a Jewish state, and a place where the Bible is being fulfilled and where Jews could live without persecution and celebrate the festivals and have kosher food. And that was the next phase. And that sort of, to me, we hit a crossroads on October 7th, because we were like going towards this glorious future, and then we were hit with a dose of reality. And I believe the next phase is Universal Zionism, where Israel turns outward and starts to recognize that its role in the world is not just to be a refuge for the Jewish people, but to be a light unto all of the nations and to be a source of blessing for the whole world. And so the next phase of the Zionist movement is for Israel to be a source of blessing, and for Zionism to be as relevant for a Christian in Kentucky as it is for a Jew in Jerusalem. That's Universal Zionism.
That's beautiful. If, in my mind, what that also reflects, like at ICJ, we don't focus on negative prophecies, many of which have already been fulfilled in just the Jewish story. We focus on the positive prophecies. And Universal Zionism is a fulfillment of the positive prophecies.
And it's a very, very hopeful sign and movement to get involved with. And we're looking to not, this isn't a book, it's a movement. It's describing a movement, and it really requires Jews and Christians to work together, Americans and Israelis to work very closely together. And we're thinking, well, how do you start? Where do you start? And the suggestion that I describe here is Shabbat. Shabbat's the 4th commandment. It's holy for us. It's holy for you. And it is something that Christians have moved away from to some extent. Jews have held onto the Shabbat very preciously. It's the best thing we have. It's the biggest, it's not even a secret, but it's the best thing that the Jewish people have is Shabbat. And there's a famous line, more than the Jews have kept Shabbat, Shabbat has kept the Jews. And so at a time where America is being pulled in all of these crazy directions and this cancer of anti-Semitism is metastasizing very quickly, Shabbat allows people to get back to the basics, to unplug, to spend time with your family, to spend time with your community, to spend time with God. And what we're encouraging is for Jewish people to open up their homes to Christians to celebrate Shabbat together and to join a Jewish family for a Friday night dinner.
No, that's beautiful. I mean, when the Shabbat table is how Jews and Christians come together too. And I have a lot of friends that have worked in the Christian Zionist space for years and years. And one of like their biggest heartaches is that they've never been invited to a Shabbat dinner. So here they are committing their young adult lives to Israel and to pray for Israel and to work for Israel. And they've never been invited to a Shabbat.
That breaks my heart to hear that. And give me a list of your friends. We will invite them. And that's exactly what we're trying to do. We have here at the NRB a Shabbat experience. And at the end, we have a Shabbat table and we walk people through what it's like. And then we have a card you could fill out. And if you're looking to be hosted by a Jewish family, we will help facilitate that. So all of your listeners should, follow up with Israel 365. Anyone who's interested, we will help facilitate an authentic Shabbat dinner with a Jewish family. And then you go home and you decide how you want to incorporate that into your own Christian life.
I was at one Shabbat dinner. I mean, I thankfully have had the blessing. I have a lot of Israelis in my life, and Israelis are very free with their Shabbat invitations. And one time just with an Orthodox family, and, they're doing the Kiddush, they're doing the bread and wine. And even they know that, this is a practice in Christianity that like when we have communion, that it's part of the Passover experience and that we have our own spiritual imagination that what we're connecting with. And so Orthodox rabbi looks at me and he says, you should probably think about Jesus during this part. So, I mean, that to me, I'm like, oh, we are so far down the path of just these relations of encouraging each other to live a holy and pleasing life to the Lord.
We're in a new era, but we can't take it for granted either, because it's if we don't invest in these relationships, then the next generation is not necessarily with us in the same way. So we can't take it for granted. We as a Jewish community need to do more to reach out to Christians, and that's what Universal Zionism is all about.
So I know, we're talking about biblical Zionism as well. Switching modes to political Zionism, Israel's in a much stronger place. Last year I was crying in almost every interview because we're still just in a year after October 7th. And I'm asking most of the guests, what was your experience on October 7th? And it was just such a brutal experience. And here we are 2 years later after October 7th. And Israel's in a completely different place. The entire Middle East has been reshaped and reformed. And so are you feeling optimistic as an Israeli? What does this look like for Israel to be so strong right now?
Yeah, that's exactly what we think a lot about actually at Israel 365, because it's wonderful and we're in a much stronger position militarily, economically, politically, diplomatically. Well, I don't know if I would say diplomatically, but politically in the region. And at the same time, we shouldn't be surprised because this is foretold in prophecy. Israel is going to come back and we're going to be blessed and we're going to be a source of blessing for the rest of the world as well. So we have to sort of figure out what that looks like. And I think, for example, Israel has a real responsibility to taking care of persecuted Christians and minorities in the region or in their broader region. And that's something that hasn't really been a priority of Israel, but now maybe could be. And Israel could be a safe haven, not only for the Jewish people who've been persecuted, but perhaps even for persecuted minorities and persecuted Christians. So that to me is what the next step might look like, but it's also all part of Universal Zionism, that next stage where Israel isn't only about the Jews, it's about the world.
I mean, it's such a better place to be. I would rather be, deep in the weeds of these kind of deep thoughts with Israel in a strong place.
I'd love for you to read the book and we could discuss it further. And it is an exciting conversation to be part of.
So I'm going to put you in the hot seat. You're having a Shabbat experience with Christians tomorrow, as part of NRB. what is the Torah portion of the week? And give me one thought on it.
The Torah portion of the week. Wow, that is a great question. It's called Truma, and it is about giving tithe to the building of the tabernacle. And it also talks about Shabbat in there, because we actually learn a lot of the laws of Shabbat from the construction of the tabernacle, something you didn't know maybe. And it's loaded with really wonderful special nuggets about how to make Shabbat and to tap into the true essence of Shabbat, because it's not only about turning off your cell phone. That's obviously something that's a new modern way of honoring Shabbat, but it really was about rest. And so the construction of the tabernacle was like the quintessential act of labor that they did in the desert. And then on Shabbat, they refrained from construction and from agriculture and all. And so tapping into the original meaning of Shabbat is something that we're going to discuss this weekend. And
so the Torah portion leads you right into that discussion.
Honestly, the Torah portion always leads us right into that discussion.
Okay.
So that's, and we have a lot of resources on the Israel Bible website if you want to know what the Torah portion is and how to connect it with your own life. So that's the website we talked about earlier, the israelbible.com. And we have courses called Israel Bible Plus, and you could go deeper with our courses taught by our rabbis. So we have a lot of really great information and content that is all from a Jewish perspective, but is meant to be user-friendly and super engaging for our Christian friends.
Right. That's wonderful. I mean, that's one of my favorite things about Shabbat is just hearing a Jewish family talk about the Torah portion of the week, and of course my own overlay and just how I see Jesus in it as well. And so I'm excited for others to have that experience. And we've been meaning to have you on this podcast for a long time. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, it was a pleasure talking with you again, Shelley.
Thank you for listening to the Out of Zion podcast.
Hey, just give me one more minute. I want to offer you one of our free resources. We have wonderful resources in our show notes. And if you go to our website at icejusa.org/show notes, you'll find links for a number of our free offers. We have downloadables to help root you in Scripture, help you to understand the issues surrounding Israel, and the importance of Christian support for Israel. And don't forget, please follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and stay connected. Thank you, and God bless.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Out of Zion with Susan Michael. Be sure to subscribe to Out of Zion now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Pray.com, Salem One Place, Salem Life Audio. Out of Zion with Susan Michael is a production of ICEJ USA. All rights reserved.